He says, or she says, he or she, so for, I have a very basic knowledge of the big syndication and IFTTT picture and how it works, but I still have lots of gaps in my understanding, which I hope you can demystify for me. Would it be best to syndicate just my own posts and curated posts to my syndication network, or would it be better to also include other related RSS feeds? So for question number one, I always recommend just syndicating your own content. Remember, curated content is going to contain links to third-party content, right? Because you're curating other people's content. So you're going to cite the source, which is like you're linking, giving attribution through a link back to the original source. But you want to no follow those links. That's how I've always done it. You can get plugins or install plugins on your WordPress site if you're using WordPress, which I can only assume you are, that are called like no follow external link or no follow. Like there's a ton of them, but they will automatically no follow external links. You can override it on a link by link basis if you want, but there's I don't know what just happened, but it would automatically no follow links. So curated content is using other people's content to create new content, but you're not linking directly, you're not publishing directly to your branded network from other sources. In other words, you're publishing other pieces or snippets of content into a blog post that is originally published on your blog before it gets syndicated out to your network. So the short answer is I like to stick to just my own content, which can be curated, publishing to my branded syndication network. If you're using multiple tiered networks or two-tiered networks, because we do sell those, then your related RSS feeds, related content feeds will go into the second tier networks. So triggered at the second IFTTT accounts for each one of those second tier networks. And there's a reason for that. And that's to help reduce the footprint from posting from your branded network to persona-based networks, which should be still themed, but not they're not branded. And the reason why you want to do that is because you don't want just a bunch of persona-based networks republishing only your content, because that's a clear footprint of search manipulation, and you don't want to do that. So, okay. Number two, how long should my content be? An article or an article curation approximation? It really doesn't matter. The more important thing is that it's themed well and that it's topically related or geographically related to whatever you're trying to promote, or both. That's really all that matters. Ours vary. We typically have, I can't even give you an example word count, but we typically, sorry, I had a call coming in. We usually end up with 2 to 3 pieces of curated content, and in there's an opening paragraph, a conclusion, and there's 2 to 3 pieces of curated content with some commentary in between. And when I say curated content, it can be articles, images, MP3, like audio players, essentially videos, infographics. It could be a number of things. Okay, so we usually have 2 or 3 curated pieces of content with commentary in between, and an opening and a closing. All right. How regularly should I post to my syndication network? That depends on the competition. It also depends on how quickly you want to get results. The more equals better. As long as it's, like I said, well created content. So it really depends. Some industries, for example, if you're in the technology industry, you might need to post 2 or 3 times a day, maybe more. If you're in the roofing industry, you might only need to post once a week. I still, for most of my clients, which are mostly all contractors, we usually post either 2 or 3 times per week to the blog. Okay, for most of my clients. Number 4, how many backlinks to my properties should my articles contain? I usually only have 1, just because we publish regularly. So generally, my bloggers only post 1 link back to some other page or post within the website, within the money site, if that makes sense. It's usually 1 link per post, because again, we post consistently and regularly, so it accrues, it builds up over time. Generally, what you want to do is, if you have a well siloed site, which you should, you want to make sure that your posts are only linking within the silo. So in other words, up either to the previous post or to any previous post within that same silo or page, for that matter. You can link up to the silo header, which would be the the silo landing page, whatever the case may be. You want to keep that very, very tight. If you're going to link to other content that's not within the same silo, which you can do, just no follow those links. Okay. But I usually just do one. You can do more, but honestly, it's a longevity thing for us because we just do it consistently and regularly. So there's really no need to put more than one internal link. And if we do, a lot of the times it's in a second internal link to some other content in perhaps another category or silo, in which case we would no follow it. And that's more of a navigational link as opposed to an SEO link. If that makes sense. Is the main purpose of syndication for driving traffic or gaining backlinks? Both, but to be honest, I mean, in all reality, it was primarily for SEO purposes. And that's really where it is, because you will get a little bit of traffic from some of the other platforms. Sometimes you can see it in analytics, for example. You might get some traffic from WordPress or from Facebook if you're syndicating to Facebook, or Tumblr occasionally, things like that. But a lot of the times it's mainly for SEO and for entity validation, as we like to call it now. All right. And lastly, are my syndicated properties likely to get banned? No, not as long as you're not spamming them. Like I said, if you're doing well-created content, and it doesn't have, it could be curated, but if it's content that's well done and you're not overly injecting links into the content and that kind of stuff, I swear I've got syndication networks out there that have been live since 2012 that are still being posted to. Occasionally you get a suspended property, but a lot of times you can even contact support at whatever, like Tumblr, for example, and request that it be reinstated. And then they'll, sometimes as long as there's nothing really spammy been done, they'll actually reinstate it, because sometimes it's just an algorithmic ban or suspension. And it was kind of like, caught up in some sort of filter for some reason. But I've actually recovered a lot of sites that had been. It doesn't happen very often, though. However, keep in mind, if you're using two-tier networks and you are using related content feeds on your second tier, which we recommend, that's part of the reason why I don't like to use two-tier networks for blog content or blog syndication, is because you don't have control over those second-tier RSS or those related RSS feeds. And sometimes a feed will go haywire and like publish a bunch of crap, and like all of a sudden your networks get spammed, and it wasn't really your fault. I mean, it is because you used somebody else's feed, but you didn't have control over that feed. So that's part of the reason why I got away from doing that. I use more multiple tier syndication networks just for video syndication, because there's no footprint issues there. But for blog syndication, it becomes, if you're just managing one project, it's okay or easy to manage one multi-tiered syndication network. But when you manage multiple projects, multiple websites, then it can become a real nightmare to manage all of that stuff. So I recommend just sticking with one branded syndication network for blog syndication if you're doing this for more than one project or client or website. Anybody want to comment on that? Those were some good questions.
No, the only comment that I would have is, are they likely to get banned? If you do too many posts at once, yes, WordPress will get you. Sometimes Blogger, sometimes Tumblr. But as Bradley said, you can recover them, or you're going to need a new one, because they might just get you for spamming. So if you're in a niche where you're going to be posting a lot, start off, build it up during, I don't know, a couple of weeks, so that by the end of the 2 weeks, you're doing however many you're going to do per day, because that's the only way that I've seen to get around that algorithmic ban that you get, or algorithmic suspension from WordPress, Blogger, and Tumblr sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. It's called seasoning the networks. So.